There is a list that no dealership will ever show you. No manufacturer will publish it. No algorithm is going to push it to the top of your feed. But in every serious shop across this country, from diesel specialists in rural Texas to independent mechanics in the Rust Belt, there's a quiet agreement happening. Certain trucks are being pulled off the used market fast, not by flippers, not by collectors, by the people who actually know how these machines work, the people who spend their lives underneath them. And when a mechanic starts spending his own money on a specific truck, that is not a coincidence. That is a signal. This video is that signal. The modern truck market has turned into something ugly. What used to be a working tool has become a subscription device on wheels, a data collection node, a machine that requires dealership permission to diagnose, permission to reprogram, permission to unlock features you already paid for. The average new truck buyer in 2024 does not own their vehicle the way their grandfather owned his. They lease its software, they rent access to its systems, and the moment something goes wrong outside of warranty, they find out exactly how little control they actually have. Mechanics see this every single day. A customer comes in with a late model half-ton. The transmission module needs replacing. Simple job in theory. Except the replacement module has to be VIN programmed by a dealer-level scan tool. The independent shop either turns the customer away or pays for access to a manufacturer portal that may or may not cooperate. The customer pays 3 times what the part costs just to have it recognized by the truck's own computer. That is not a repair system. That is a revenue trap, and mechanics are done with it. So they're going backwards, deliberately. And here are the 7 trucks they're buying. The first is the 1999 to 2007 Ford Super Duty with the 7.3 Power-Stroke diesel. This engine is not modern in any way that matters to a software executive. It is old. It is mechanical. The injection system is electrically actuated, but the logic behind it is simple enough that a competent diesel mechanic can diagnose it with basic tools. There's no DEF tank, no DPF, no SCR system waiting to clog at 90,000 miles. The 7.3 does not go into limp mode because a NOx sensor lost signal. It does not require a $1,200 injector coating session at the dealer. It starts, it pulls, and it keeps doing that for decades if you change the oil and respect the cooling system. Mechanics are not buying these because they're sentimental. They're buying them because they're tired of fighting software to fix iron. The second truck on the list is the first and second generation Dodge Ram with the Cummins 12-valve. The 1989 to 1998 12-valve Cummins is one of the most mechanically pure diesel engines ever installed in an American pickup. It has a Bosch inline injection pump. It has no emissions hardware in the traditional sense. It does not talk to a computer to decide whether it wants to run today. You can rebuild this engine on a farm with hand tools and a parts manual. Mechanics who understand what's coming in the regulatory landscape are treating these trucks like land. You cannot manufacture that simplicity anymore. You can only find it. Third is the 1973 to 1987 Chevrolet C and K series, specifically the square body generation with small block or big block gas engines. These trucks predate OBD entirely. There is no diagnostic port, there's no ECU, the carburetor does not phone home, the ignition system does not require a relearn procedure. You can buy a complete wiring harness for these trucks for under $400 and install it yourself in a weekend. Try doing that with a 2022 Silverado. The square body isn't perfect, but its imperfections are fixable by anyone with mechanical aptitude and a basic set of tools. That independence is what mechanics are paying for. Fourth is the Toyota Tacoma, specifically the first generation from 1995 to 2004, and more specifically the manual transmission versions with the 2.7 or 3.4-liter engine. These trucks are not diesel, they're not American iron, but they represent something important, simplicity that survives abuse. The 3RZ and 5VZ-FE engines in that era are pre-drive-by-wire. The throttle cable is a cable. If something breaks, you can find the part, you can understand the system, and you can fix it without asking anyone's permission.
Mechanics in states with serious rust and emissions inspection pressure are looking at these trucks as long-term survival vehicles, not just tools. Fifth is the 1994 to 2002 Dodge Ram 2500 and 3500 with the 24-valve Cummins and the 6-speed manual. The 24-valve gets overlooked next to the 12-valve, but the manual transmission version of this truck is a legitimate off-grid working machine. No automatic transmission computer, no torque converter clutch module. The drivetrain is straightforward enough that any mechanic familiar with Cummins diesel can keep this truck alive indefinitely with nothing more than a well-stocked parts shelf and time. The reason these are disappearing from the used market is not cosmetic, it's practical. People who understand diesel emissions regulations and where they're heading are quietly securing their exit before the door closes. Sixth is the 2001 to 2007 Chevrolet Silverado HD and GMC Sierra HD with the Duramax LB7. This is the first-generation Duramax, and yes, it had injector problems from the factory. Every mechanic knows that. But here's what they also know. Once you replace those injectors with quality aftermarket units, this engine becomes one of the most durable diesel platforms GM ever produced. No DPF, no DEF. The emissions system is comparatively simple, and the truck itself is built on a platform that hasn't been overcomplicated by a decade of mandatory feature integration. These are workhorses that mechanics respect, and they're getting harder to find in clean condition for exactly that reason. Seventh is the 1992 to 1997 Ford F-250 and F-350 with the 7.3 IDI diesel, not the Power Stroke, the older indirect injection engine. This one barely registers on most people's radar, but mechanics who work on farms and ranches and off-grid properties understand what this engine represents. It's pre-HEUI, it's pre-electronic injection. The fuel system is mechanical in a way that even the early Power Stroke isn't. You can run this engine on alternative fuels with minimal modification. You can fix it with minimal diagnostic equipment. It will never throw a code it can't explain and will never lock you out of your own repair. Every single truck on this list shares one thing. None of them require a manufacturer's permission to fix. None of them have a module waiting to be deprecated by a software update. None of them will go into reduced power mode because a sensor lost calibration and the dealer is backed up 3 weeks. These trucks exist in a world where you own the machine, fully. Not as a licensed user of its operating system, not as a subscriber to its feature set, as the actual owner of an actual piece of iron that answers to tools, not terminals. The market is already moving. Clean examples of these trucks are disappearing. Prices on 12-valve Cummins trucks that were sitting at $7,000 and $8,000 2 years ago are now pushing $15,000 and beyond. The people moving that market are not YouTube influencers. They're mechanics. They're seeing what's coming at the regulatory and software level, and they're building their personal fleets before the window shuts. What truck are you holding on to right now that you would never sell, no matter what they offer you? Drop it in the comments, because that answer tells you exactly where you stand. If you want to keep getting information that the dealership doesn't want you to have, subscribe. This channel exists for people who still believe that owning a truck means something.